What up?
How goes in the neighborhood?
I just realized my mic was wrong. So do I sound normal?
Yeah.
Okay. Every time I ask you that, I don't trust you because like there have been multiple times where I've asked you if my mic sounded good, and then I listened to it back, and I was sounded like I was in a cave underwater. So I trust the commenters actually a lot more than you. So people
There you
watching,
go. Right. Ask them.
if I sound like I'm talking to you through a potato, please tell me. And not because of my voice, because of the mic. I can't do anything about my actual voice. But yeah, if that's what it sounds like to you, please tell me in the comments, and I will probably not be able to fix it, but at least I can apologize for it. But yeah, so Steve,
Yeah.
that sucked.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like the fact that it's still that disappointing feeling that we had last year that I definitely thought wouldn't be the same going into this season, especially surrounding an offense that seemed to be revamped going into 23. And
That's a word.
yeah, it's still been grounded. I'm still waiting for takeoff.
I don't like who I am when I watch the Saints.
I understand.
Oh man. Okay, so we're gonna get going here. We haven't technically started the pod yet. I'm just kind of letting some people find us. This is a little different from our normal schedule because of the compressed week. Normally we'd have recorded this earlier in the morning. We decided since we just don't really have a lot of time that we would wait until after the initial injury report came out and kind of got to talk to Derek Carr and Dennis Allen today. So we have a little bit more context for this episode. But we're gonna get into a lot of stuff. So if you have any comments or questions or whatever, make sure to throw them in there. We're gonna do a mailbag in the final segment. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that we almost will have enough that we can do 2 episodes out of this. So we might do that mailbag just be long and turn it into a separate episode for the podcast itself. But either way, for the YouTube audience, you're here already. So get your comments, questions in there, and we'll dive into them in the back end. But yeah, just need to like recenter here. It's so weird because like if the season feels over, but it's so far from that.
I understand
Like,
totally what you're saying there.
and it's not even reasonable to think that way because 3-3, it's like, and we'll go around kind of the NFL and kind of look at where everyone else is. 3-3 is, I mean, even by this year's NFL standards, 3-3 is not an issue. Like, I watched the Giants last night. They should have won that game against the Bills. Like, you want to talk about how like it's a team that should be better than it is. The Bills at home got pushed to the brink by the Tyrod Taylor Giants. And they got away with like a blatant pass interference on that final play. They interfered in the goal line to get down to the 1, and then they did it. It was like they were just going to keep fouling until the refs were like, "Yeah, whatever, let's go home." But I mean, like they were that close to being 3-3, right? The Bills with Josh Allen and that great defense. They lead the NFL in sacks. So I mean, like there's like we're going to talk about this, but like there are a lot of teams right now who are having very similar conversations to what the Saints are having. Let's just put it that way.
I do want to me, the biggest problem isn't even the record because, yeah, it feels way beyond, though, that, we're going into week 7 here, short week, Thursday night football kind of thing. It seems like we're at the tail end of the season, and I'm not hurting from the product, the schedule or the outcome of the schedule right now. It's what we've just seen so far with the team on the field in all those 6 games. The product is not delivering currently. And we've mentioned it beginning of the year, where it was at training camp, and I think everyone's concerned. It obviously starts with the offensive line. And now the unit that we thought was improving, we got a player that was, developing, we believe, but ends up getting benched. Then the guy replacing him gets hurt. You get a big turnover in the game. You give it right back to the other team.
What are you doing? This isn't even the podcast. Save
I
it for
know,
the
but
podcast.
I'm just saying there's so many parts about this team that were frustrating.
Yeah, it's just it's not fun. It's like I remember when football was fun. It's not fun right now.
Well, even the game though, like we were, being in the game, watching it, being there on the sideline, did it really feel as like, are we honestly still in this game? How are we in this game?
They should have won that game. 100%. I mean, like I had some people come at me because I tweeted about how the Saints don't struggle against rookie QBs. It's a myth, at
Right.
least as far as it goes back to 2015. They're like, oh well, what about blah blah blah. I'm like, CJ Stroud didn't win that game. He threw an interception. They gave it back to him. Like they put up 3 points in the second half. Like that game wasn't about CJ Stroud. That game was about the Saints. But we'll get into that anyway. Let me. Why don't you kick off the pod here and we can actually like do this for real?
Okay. What's going on, Saints fans? We are inside Black and Gold. Steve Geller and Jeff Nowak coming off a tough loss in Houston. The horrors in Houston ahead of Halloween, I guess you could say. It was a horrific outing, Jeff, out there in H-Town. How is your overall, I guess the trip is pretty simple and easy, but just the overall layout and how your time was, besides an awful game.
I didn't get my mic pack caught on anything, so that's the best thing that happened to the Saints on Sunday is I didn't get in the way of anybody. Although I did get punched by a cheerleader because they don't pay attention to their surroundings, and then they're like H, and I got a pom pom in the chest. But it's not as bad as Derek Carr. I didn't get the wind knocked out of me or anything. We could talk about that too. But
right.
Yeah, that was ugly. It was ugly. The trip itself was great. I got tacos. It was fun. I went to a place called Biggio's, which is the baseball player. Because I have this thing where when I go to cities and there is a restaurant that is, fronted by a professional athlete who was big in the area, I like to go. I went to Bobby Hebert's. Like I went to Deuce's when I first moved to New Orleans. It's just a thing I do. So I went to Biggio's, but it ended up I walked like a mile and a half to get there, and it ended up just being like the restaurant in the Marriott.
Okay.
So it was just hotel food, but it was good. Anyway, that's the high point of that trip for me. But yeah, this is a podcast. We're going to talk about the Saints. We're going to get into what happened on Sunday, Houston and New Orleans. The Saints lost 20-13. This is kind of our post-game pod. This is a compressed week, so we've had to kind of adjust our schedule. Normally, we'd have recorded this earlier in the morning, but instead we waited because there's an injury report that came out today. It's Monday. It's estimated, but there's a lot of big names on it. So in this first segment, we're going to kind of react to the Saints-Texans as it was, our takeaways, why everything is miserable, and how this is the worst thing that's ever happened to the state of Louisiana. That can't be true, but it feels like it. It feels like it right now.
Just a gut punch on a Monday. It feels like
a gut punch, if you will, a Derek Carr flak jacket gut punch. But yeah, second segment, we're gonna get into that injury report, kind of what's on it. The Saints are in dire straits, to say the least, on the offensive line. I don't know who's going to play right tackle this week. I don't think they want to put Cesar Ruiz back out there. They didn't want to do it on Sunday. So I don't know, but we'll get into that. And then the final segment, we're going to do a mailbag. So if you're watching this on YouTube, throw your comments and questions in there now, and we'll get to them in the final segment. We're going to try to keep these two segments reasonable so we can do a long mailbag on the back end, because I know people have a lot to say, and I want you to get your stuff out there. But, first things first, Steve, what is kind of your initial reaction to that game? It was just unpleasant from start to finish. Everything that we saw in weeks 1 through 4 with the red zone issues just came right back. You thought, oh man, they finally turned a corner. They figured this out. Nope. But yeah, what did you think of that game?
Well, one, the Houston Texans are way better than the New England Patriots.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. That's a fact, Jack.
I think there might be 31 NFL teams that are better than the New England Patriots.
Yeah, just seeing a team that, we've heard a lot, obviously, how D'Amico Ryans has the unit playing. Definitely a team that gave it their all. A tough squad that we knew going in was going to be one of those quote unquote dog fights with. Just again in the trenches. being unsuccessful was a big letdown. And really, Jeff, that moment that, my face when that interception, you hear Zach Baun with the interception, and I'm like, holy crap.
It
And
happened.
and then like almost instantaneously it was taken away and sucked out. And that feeling just lingered. That feeling lingered the entire game, I feel like. Even when there were moments the Saints looked like, okay, they could, jump ahead here. It's still just, it was like, what else could go kind of wrong thing. And to me, yeah, the fact that you bench your young left tackle that you're trying to develop, and then suddenly, bam, the guy you're replacing him with gets hurt, and you now got to thrust the kid back into action. It was just it was a very disgusting taste it left in the mouth from the matchup.
Pow, right in the kisser.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Yes, it just was bad. And like you can look at it, and we're gonna talk about this, 3-3. It feels worse than 3-3.
No,
And
it's
one of the
definitely not
reasons,
the end of the world.
well, it's not, but at the same time, one of the reasons that it feels a lot worse than 3-3 is when you look at how they got to 3-3.
Oh,
The
right.
teams they've beaten, you're talking about bottom of the barrel. You're talking about a combined record of 3-15. The Panthers are 0-6. The Patriots are 1-5. The Titans are 2-4. I'm pretty sure that is the lowest winning percentage in terms of teams beaten for any team 3-3 or better. And it is a lot worse than it sounds at 3-3. And you should, the worst part is you should be at minimum 4-2. There's, that Bucks game they were never in, but they should have won this game. I mean, you talk about the interception. I tweeted at one point, the Saints should have been up 10-0 in that game. Seriously, like a game they lost 20-13. They should have been ahead 10-0 if Blake Grupe makes that 52-yarder, which is well within his range. I don't know what the heck was up with him in that game. I don't know if maybe he was reading too much of his own press clippings of the NFC South player. I'm sorry, the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week thing. But man, what happened? 52 indoors? That's money. I don't think I've seen him miss a kick in preseason or a game.
But that 29-yarder is definitely, you can't.
Yeah, that makes no sense. Like that's literally short of an extra point. That's a chip shot.
I believe,
and that
someone put out there, it's the shortest field goal missed this season in the NFL.
I believe it, because even an extra point would be longer than that, right? So yeah, and he just hooked it. I don't know what the heck. I haven't looked at the play itself to see if maybe the operation went wrong somehow. But yeah, that's not good, and that can't be a thing. Like that can't be a thing. And I don't think you're questioning your decision yet. But in my stock down column, he's in there because,
like you just mentioned, though, he is coming off just being special teams player of the week, and it's like, damn it.
Yeah, he makes 250-yarders outdoors, and you're like, man, this kid is clutch. He can do it. And then you go indoors. And I mean, if he makes those kicks, obviously you don't want to be in a situation where you're relying on your kicker to make 5 field goals to win a game. Right? That's not who you want to be as an offense, but I'd still like that to be an option.
I'd like,
right?
The point.
I mean, like,
right.
it's not like if it's windy, if it's the conditions suck. Like I watched Tyler Bass miss a couple kicks. That's outdoors in Buffalo, right? That's wind. This is not that. You should trust this guy to make those field goals, and if he does, then that drive at the end of the game, it's a go-ahead field goal. And instead, you got. So he was in my stock down column after the game. There was a few other players in that stock down category. We talked about one guy in particular, and it's Marshawn Lattimore. And we were kind of going through this, and I thought it was interesting because you brought this up. It's like, well, why does he struggle in these matchups against no-name receivers? And I think it's interesting this week because one of the elements of what's happening here is that people are kind of in real time figuring out that Nico Collins is like legit good. Like I saw a lot of people being like, oh, he struggles against scrub receivers. Like, no. This guy's on pace for like 1,500 yards. Nico Collins is legit. That said, you want Marshawn to win that matchup. He should win that matchup, and he did in the second half. The defense came out flat. Whatever they want to say, they came out flat. Marshawn got beat multiple times. I know he had at least one penalty. They locked down in the second half, and you needed your offense to do something. They got the ball with five. They got the ball 5 separate times in the second half, down by a touchdown. 5 separate times. You know how many of those possessions they scored on? 0. They drove into the red zone 3 times. They did not get a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, just to go back to Marshawn, like we were talking about this, Nico Collins has multiple games this year with like 7 catches, 160 yards. He had 4 catches for 80 yards in that game. Not exactly a huge game, but still, a lot more yards than you would expect in a matchup with a guy like Marshawn Lattimore. So, it's probably unfair to expect him to lock down completely in every matchup, but it's just feels more and more like that's the way you're going to win games this year. And it's the only way you're going to win games until this offense can, emphasis on can, because I think it still can get itself sorted out. And because they move the ball, they had over 400 yards. It is weird. It kind of reminds you of that 49ers game last year where it's like you move the ball between the 20s, but it seemed like the closer you got to the end zone, the further away you actually were, right? The less likely it was you were going to score, the closer you got. And gosh, I understand the frustration. I do. It's rough.
Another game we've asked about it before. Where are you, Jimmy Graham? Definitely a no sighting at all. Was he active even in the game?
He was there. But yeah, well, right. It's if Juwan Johnson was healthy, I would say Jimmy Graham should be inactive because I just don't see, like, would you not have benefited from an extra lineman maybe?
Could have been.
Just saying, so that Cesar Ruiz is not your emergency right tackle, because that was not the plan. I asked Dennis Allen about that today, whether they had went in with a because Landon Young was out, so was he going to be your right tackle if Ryan Ramczyk went down? Because you always have contingencies, at least for the starters. Like, okay, if this guy goes down for a play, who's replacing him? Cesar Ruiz was not the guy. I don't know who it was specifically, but I imagine it might have been James Hurst. Maybe James Hurst would have kicked across the line if they needed him to. Nope, not happening because James Hurst went down. Trevor Penning had to go in. And so Cesar Ruiz, a guy who I'm interested to talk to him later in the week because I'm just curious if he's ever played right tackle before, because he was a center. He's an interior lineman. Like, what is that? But you didn't have
a lot of questions though. Even with this week, obviously short week, and with all the concerns with injuries, we haven't gone down the list yet, right?
We have not. We'll go into that in the second segment.
Okay.
But yeah, and one of the things that Dennis Allen said post game, and we heard this from multiple players, multiple sources, like heads are going to roll if things don't get sorted out. And I think this week specifically is very important because you're gonna, it's not a bye, but it's a lot easier to make changes when you have a few extra days to implement them, and you can kind of make some decisions and sit and mull and then get back to it. And the Saints have 10 days off in between week 7 and week 8. They're going and facing the Colts. And if you're going to make some changes, that's when you'd make it. If you're going to make play caller changes, hint, hint, that's when I think you would make it, because you're not going to wait until the bye if you feel like this is something that has to happen. The Panthers made a play caller change today. They're 0-6. They're having a great time with Bryce Young and Frank Reich over there. But, this is what DA...
mastermind, Frank Reich.
Right. They could have had Derek Carr. they're this close. But this is what Dennis Allen had to say about, just do your job.
And, we have to, I told the team in there, like, we've got to do a better job of, executing our jobs. And, if we're not executing our jobs, then we need to find somebody else that can execute those jobs. Doesn't matter who you are.
And he said today, that's not just players, like that's coaches too. And, that's the thing. And we've talked plenty about play calling. Is it good? Probably not. Is it the biggest issue with this team? Probably not. I mean, when I can criticize the coaching, like, it's easy to just look at the play calling and be like, well, if that was better, this would have worked. If you're not executing the plays correctly, they're not going to work. Plain and simple. And, we were talking to Deuce about this earlier today. And it's like, there's just these issues that crop up that don't make sense. And so when I criticize the coaching, I'm looking at what's happening during the week. Why does Rashid Shaheed not seem to know what route he's supposed to be running? Right? That's happened multiple times. It happened with Mike Thomas on a play, and Derek Carr, I don't know, was he mad? He just chucked the ball into the dirt for the most obvious grounding penalty ever. It was almost not grounding because he wasn't facing any pressure. There was no one. He just was like, screw it, play over. And I'm like, what? And like, these are the things that just don't make sense. People don't seem comfortable with the play calls. They don't seem ready. They don't seem to understand what's supposed to be happening. And to me, that is the issue. That is the problem. They keep talking about execution and like, I know it's a broken record, but like, that's the problem. They're telling you what the problem is. And the issue, the part that people don't seem to get to because they're too worried about, well, this play call and this play call is, why is it not improving? Why is the execution not getting better? You should not be having this type of miscommunications in week 6, right? And to me, that's the part where it's like, I don't necessarily need a play caller change, but I need something to change. I need the coaching to get better. I need the players to execute. And right now, that's the problem. It's like one of the reasons they can't score in the red zone is because everything is so tight in the red zone. Everything has to be on point in the red zone, and so little has been on point with this offense. Like, you can execute between the 20s, but once they get down there and they're going to send some pressure, and you have to just be on your keys and get the ball out and get it to the right place at the right time, and that guy has to be ready and running the right route at the right depth. That's where everything bogs down. And to me, that is the mission critical issue for this team right now, because you're going to lose a lot of games in the NFL if you can't be perfect on your assignment. It's just the fact. Sloppy teams lose games, and the Saints are a sloppy team.
Yeah, and we heard from Kamara post game. We heard Michael Thomas. Those guys aren't pointing fingers at play calling or the coaching staff. They're saying directly, this is on us. And Kamara was really strong with some words saying everybody obviously needs to take that kind of look in the mirror kind of thing right now. And are you sacrificing enough to be at that level where this team needs you kind of thing?
Yeah, I have those clips.
It's just, you heard both of those guys. Obviously, you feel that frustration when they're speaking.
Which clip do you want?
Just one with like Alvin talking about basically everybody's got to take accountability, I guess.
I'm echoing it. I'm gonna piggyback off Mike. I mean, we got to find a way to execute, man. And me personally, I mean, I don't know. I just hope everybody believes.
Is it as simple as coming down to execution?
Yeah, it's kind of simple. It's like, it's just you got to go out there and run the plays that are called and do it to perfection. You can't be one half off or one step off or one route off, or you can't do it. I can't be one read off. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough when stuff like that happens.
Yeah, and I mean, and Alvin, I wouldn't say had a good game, and I don't think he necessarily executed the way he needed to either. And that's like, I talked about this last week, and I was worried that this might happen in the sense that, like, a shutout is great. It's fun. Everyone, it feels like you're a step in the right direction, but we saw that happen last year. The Saints went out and beat the Raiders 24-0, and then showed up the next week and laid a dud, right? And that's exactly what happened this week. And Derek Carr alluded to it in his post game. It was like, did you do the work that you needed to do, or did you have a bit too much fun this week? And I think, it's like that attention to detail, you can't fake it. You can't just show up and expect to win an NFL game. And, here's what Derek had to say on, just the coaching staff and how he kind of approached it.
I never will blame a coach because they're not the ones standing on the field. I've always, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, I've always been like, I don't care what play you call. We should be able to execute something, and obviously we know things happen, right? But, they have a good call or whatever. But I've always felt like, man, like I don't like that mentality of pointing a finger. I don't like that mentality at all. I always felt like, if you call something, I'm going to do my best to make that happen, no matter the situation, no matter what, whether I agree or disagree. I am human. I do have those feelings. I'm just going to do my best to execute.
And do you have a lot of input in what you're all doing?
Yeah, they always listen to any ideas that I have. I'm not sitting up there putting the whole game plan together. I don't overstep, and do those things. But there's a lot of plays that yesterday that Pete was calling, that were an idea or thought that I had, or RC had, or DJ had, or any, he listens and takes input from everybody. I am, Ole, my old coach, he used to say it's not about who's right, it's about what's right. Like, who cares who's right in the room? Like, let's just do what's right. And so Pete's always been that way since I got here. If it's a good idea and it makes sense based on the film, and it makes sense based on the scheme that we're playing and what we do, then he'll do it. So, I think everyone, including myself, Pete's always listened to us. It's been good.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's just the answer you're going to get. It's like you can call different plays. If you don't run them correctly, if you don't execute them correctly, it doesn't really matter. And like, you can change the play caller. It's not, or if you do not execute the plays. And I'm not against changing the play caller. I think that at a certain point, a change is good just to refocus and to just settle everything down. And I think you see the loss of confidence in real time when you get down in the red zone for like the sixth. You get the ball back for the sixth time in the second half, and you have not been able to get to the end zone once. And it's like, they're not getting in. They're not getting in. We know this. They're going to send pressure, and the Saints are not going to be able to adjust. That's all they did. That's all the Texans did on that final drive. Is they sent zero blitz after zero
run the
blitz.
ball efficiently. They can't pound anybody when they need to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they tried. I don't think the Saints did enough in the run game to say that they couldn't run it. Right? I just don't think they got to it. I think that they got flustered because they got mistakes after mistakes, and then they just, and Derek Carr threw the ball 50 times in a game that, it's not like they were down. They were down a score. They could have ran the ball in the second half. They didn't.
We've just seen the yards per carry. Obviously, it doesn't matter who it is. Even, it's like, oh, it's different with Kamara. He wasn't getting away from the pack either. The not getting enough lanes open with that O-line. I don't know. Kendra Miller's not even getting enough attempts, in my opinion, or touches with the ball. And yeah, not enough Taysom pounding the rock either. The lack of a run game. The lack of a run game against the Texans was definitely frustrating. Even the lack of committing to it, I guess.
Yeah, and I think when James Hurst went down, everything kind of went haywire. And we'll get into more about that. But yeah, it didn't seem like there was much confidence in the run game, and there definitely wasn't later. Right?
I see Eugene Sutherland saying kind of thing. Damn it, drink.
Yeah, just don't turn that into a drinking game. It'll be dangerous. But no, I mean, we can kind of wrap this segment up here. What's frustrating is, and people have said this, and they're right. How many times are we going to hear the same thing? Right? How many games are going to finish where you're like, oh, we just didn't execute? And they're like, yeah, well,
we know.
Of course, like, no shit, you didn't execute. Why didn't you execute? What is going on with this team where this is acceptable? Where you can have the same mistakes, and you can get a month and a half into the season, and it looks like your wide receiver, like Rashid Shaheed, you're going to see the stat, you're going to see the touchdown, you're going to see the big play, and you're going to be like, he must have had a good game. He had a terrible game. He was constantly doing the wrong thing. I don't know what was with him in terms of, what are you doing? In terms of the play call, the dog's
made you jump.
Yeah, it was a loud bark. But I think she thinks I'm talking to her. I think that's
she's got something to say about the Saints too, I'm sure.
Yeah, she didn't have a good time watching that game. But like, that was a problem. It just kept repeatedly. You just saw, like, they did not seem like they were on. There was one point he was running a wheel route. Derek Carr thought he was going to do something else. That last drive, it looked like Derek Carr had him, and he just ran the wrong route. So I don't know. Like Rashid, I think, is a good example of someone who's always working, always wants to do the right thing. He needs to be coached. And I just don't think that type of coaching is happening right now.
So there's some kind of disconnect in the wide receiver room?
I don't know, but Chris Olave has seemed very disinterested. To do with that what you will. I mean, like,
yeah,
I don't see the consistent attention to detail from him. There was multiple situations where he was just not at the right depth on his routes. We saw in the Bucs game that they just did not see him. He even admitted that he let the situation get to him and his attitude needed to be readjusted. And I don't know, like, where does that come from? Like, because I didn't see that last year, at least not noticeably. And suddenly, now that there's all these weapons and a quarterback you should have faith in, now this is cropping up. I just don't know. Well, we can move on, but it's just that's the part that frustrates me again. And like, people think I'm just here to defend Pete Carmichael, and it's just like, no, I think there's bigger issues than the play calling. That's all I'm saying.
No, and I tend to side with the leaders on this team, the guys saying, they hear it obviously, and they want you to know, the fans to know, me to know, you know. It's not the coaching staff right now. The players, they have to get it right and get it done on the field. For whatever reason, that hasn't been happening. And like you said, how many times are we going to see it? Well, we just got to execute the game plan. Nobody wants to hear that post game anymore.
Correct. And one other thing that we'll get into before we move on, there's a video circulating, and I'm sure you've seen it, of Derek Carr coming off the field.
Right.
I don't know if it was the last possession. I think it might have been the second to last possession, the one that ended on fourth. They got stopped on fourth down with that kind of check down to Kamara, which didn't look right. Like, something didn't add up there. I don't know what was going on, but he kind of came off the field and he was just livid in the direction of Pete Carmichael. I don't know what he was saying. The video did not have sound, but he was asked about that today, and this is what he had to say.
I apologize to Pete, actually, on the airplane. So I was talking to Pete, but I wasn't talking about Pete. Pete and I know exactly what I was talking about and why. And when the game's on the line, that's when you have to be on every detail of your assignment. And I was a little upset at some of those things, and so it had nothing to do with Pete. He just happened to be the one that walked up when I was a little angry.
Yeah, I'm not gonna assume what Derek was saying, but I think everyone's nerves are frayed a little bit when you think you have a game plan, you think everyone's on the same page, and then suddenly that guy's not running the right route. I can't throw to him. He's not there. And like, you don't see a veteran quarterback get flustered and throw the ball into the dirt because his receiver's not where he's supposed to be. That's not what's supposed to happen. And so, that's gotta change. You got 4 days. The best thing that happened to the Saints is there's a game, in 72 hours.
It was just a weird feeling all the way around. The team everything was off. Everything was off. And especially, I'll go to even the defense early on. Obviously, they were able to tighten the ship later on in the game. But man, like I said, everything was just off just a tiny bit everywhere in this game, and it bit them in the ass.
They came out flat. Like, the defense came out flat. I actually think they did execute when they needed to. They came out flat. They got run over in that first half. I think it was about 90 yards rushing. Devin Singletary, I don't know if they tackled him the entire first half. I mean, he averaged 8 yards a carry. It just didn't work. And so, when you see stuff like that happening, it's immediately like, well, this game's over, because I know the offense is not putting up the points. And the defense figured it out. They came out with more energy in the second half. It was too little, too late. 17 points was enough to win the game, and that's what they got in the first half before the defense was able to figure it out. So this, again, it's like 3-3. It's not the end of the world. There's plenty of time. The NFC South is right there, and we feel like we've been saying that for 2 years.
That's for sure. At least everybody lost too.
Yeah, but I'm tired of it. I'm not doing another year where every time they lose and be like, oh, but the silver lining is they can win the division at 8-9. I'm not doing that again. Then the Saints shouldn't feel like that's even in their.
What, you don't want to sneak in and sneak in and get blown out in one game?
Well, no, I mean, it's like you can't. That's not going to fly this year. You're not getting that. Last year, first year under Dennis Allen, I think there was a lot of headwind that you had to navigate. And so you're like, man, even just a playoff appearance with this crappy season would be a victory. That can't be the tone that's struck this year. And I don't think it is. To Dennis Allen's credit, he is getting to that point where it's like, no. like we'll talk about this. He benched Trevor Penning, and you can say you disagree with the decision. I at least agree with the, decision to be decisive.
The decision to decide.
Yeah. I'm glad he decided something. Anyway, let's wrap up that segment. We're going to come back.
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, let's wrap up that segment. We're okay. You want to say something? Say something.
No. Like, I get it. It's like you had the nuts to make a move. Just then do it. Stick with it.
Exactly. Right. And it's like if they did that, if they made more decisions like that, I think this team would be better off. Anyway, let's wrap up this segment. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about the injury report that came out today. A lot of big names on it. 2 big name defensive players that I didn't expect to see are on there. So we're getting to that. Saints face the Jaguars on Thursday Night Football. There is not a lot of time to really even go back and think about what just happened on Sunday. It's probably for the best. But all right, this is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. We're going to be right back, get into the injury report, then a live mailbag. Stick around. And we're back. Sorry for that extended delay. I did there was like 120 comments in there, so I wanted to get a head start so that by the time we get to the mailbag, I'll have won't have to go for a 10-minute break. But all right, and we're back on Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller, and for this segment, I want to start by getting into the injury report. Monday is not typically an injury report day, but when you play on Thursday, it is. And the team didn't practice today, but they do still put out an estimated injury report, and you trust them to be honest. I've always wondered, there's got to be some level of gamesmanship involved here. Like, you don't have to say, so like if you're on the injury report, that means that it's not like something that we'll have cleared up by tomorrow. And in most instances, I think either way. So the guys that you didn't expect to see or have not seen and are still out: Juwan Johnson, JT Gray, Landon Young, James Hurst, Ryan Ramczyk, all out. James Hurst and Ryan Ramczyk left during the game. Ryan has a concussion. I don't think there's any chance he plays. James Hurst has an ankle issue that looked really bad coming off the field. He got carted back to the locker room, It's the same ankle that he hurt 2 weeks ago before the Patriots matchup. He played through it. I don't expect him to play. Landon Young's got a hip issue. I think he's missed the last 2 weeks with that same issue. I don't expect him to play. So, man, you are in trouble on the offensive line. And I don't know if you're going to sign somebody off the couch like the Giants did. I don't know if you caught that on Sunday Night Football. Justin Pugh's introduction, where they say where they're from. He said straight off the couch, which I thought was funny. But man, they're going to have to figure something out because the Jags are coming.
Yeah, I would imagine they're pretty busy working out some guys, seeing who they can get in for not just depth, but maybe for a little bit of help. Because I don't know. You mentioned the big one, obviously, Ryan Ramczyk, your all pro over there. That I don't see any way he gets cleared either in time for a Thursday night game with a concussion and the NFL protocol.
If you didn't clear the concussion protocol in the sense that you were allowed to return to the game,
right,
then you are going through the full concussion protocol, regardless of the severity of it. And once you get into the concussion protocol, it's virtually impossible to clear even a week, let alone 4 days. So no, the annoying thing, and this was this kind of flew under the radar when it happened because you were like, who cares, right? But the Falcons signed Storm Norton off the Saints practice squad a few weeks ago.
Right.
Wouldn't he be nice to have right now? Yeah. The guy who had worked the right tackle all camp. Yeah, he obviously wasn't the best option, but he's certainly better than your center/guard moving to right tackle. It's funny in the stock up, stock down column that I did, there weren't many stock up options, but I did put Cesar Ruiz on there. And it's not even because he played well. I think he played what you would have expected your right guard to do at right tackle. But like the fact that he did it at all, it's like, I think you have to give him some credit for going out there in a very difficult situation and doing what he could do. I mean, they did move the ball. So in that sense, like he didn't get trucked and the game end that way. But yeah, that's something you got to figure out. Maybe Lyle Collins, he's out there. I don't know how desperate you are to bring in a guy that you're probably gonna have to pay a decent chunk of change. But
yeah, I mean, what was it? The Bengals that recently just let him go?
I am not sure. I'd have to double check, but I do know he is out there on the free agent market.
To me, it's like, well, if Cincinnati's letting an offensive lineman go, do I really want him?
No, well, that's the thing. It's like there's no good. It's not like there's guys sitting out there as free agents that are just like, right. They're going to show up and be a Pro Bowl right tackle. So it's like the best. You're looking for the best of the bad options right now.
I guess maybe we can send some scouts to some sumo league wrestling, and maybe we can get some guys from there.
Right, something.
I don't know.
Get in the way. But yeah, I imagine you're not going to be running a lot to the right side this week, but you also don't want to run to the left side because that's where Trevor Penning is going to be, assuming that he starts again. And I mentioned this. We talked to Dennis Allen and asked him about, okay, why did Trevor Penning get benched? It was a decision that they kind of projected early in the week. They talked to Dennis or to Trevor early in the week about it. James Hurst had been getting all the reps at left tackle. Andres Pete was supposed to be the left guard, but then he apparently strained his groin on the final play of Thursday's practice. So he was an emergency. He was active, but he was an emergency lineman. And so the Saints were dedicated enough to that change that instead of just moving James back to guard and allowing Trevor to start just to maintain continuity, they went Max Garcia. So they were dedicated to sitting Trevor down, and that lasted all of a quarter before he had to go in anyway, and did not look good because he was not prepared for it because he didn't get first-team reps, and he needs first-team reps. But this is what Dennis Allen had to say about that decision.
I think, 5 games in, and I saw some improvements from the player, and yet, I wanted him to be able to kind of, sit back and see the game from a different perspective, and kind of grow that way. And then obviously with James going down, he had to go in there and play. And I thought he kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start, but then I thought he kind of settled in a little bit more. So again, we'll evaluate the tape and see how that ended up playing out. But yeah, I think we just wanted to give him a chance to kind of step back a little bit and kind of see the game from a different perspective.
How did he handle that? How did he handle?
Look, I thought he handled it well. I thought he had a good week of practice, and he knows that he's got to continue to work to get better, which he's going to do. So I thought he handled it well, and we'll see where we're at next week.
What did you say a couple times?
I look at him as still a rookie player, and there's some ups and downs that go along with that. There's different ways to learn. There's trial by fire. And then there's giving a guy an opportunity to kind of step back and take a breath and, again, like I said, evaluate and see the game from a different perspective. So that's what went into the decision.
That's a kind way to describe a guy getting benched. We wanted to allow him to take a step back and get some perspective.
Yeah, I was like, I was staring at that while, just trying to, how does he keep a straight face saying that?
Come on. Yeah, like, come on, you benched the guy. Just say, was not where it needed to be, and we wanted to see if we could get the best 5 players on the field, and he's not that right now. That's all he had to say. Don't give me a line about, oh, this is what's best for him right now. No, what's best for him is to keep playing and improve.
Actual reps, not mental reps.
And now, is that the... Stop barking. Oh,
she agrees.
She's being weird. Now, is that the best thing for the Saints offensive line, for the Saints offense? Probably not. And that's why the decision was made, because this team is aware that its offense is not in where the shape it needs to be in. They need to be more effective running the ball. They need to be more consistent. They need to be able to run to both sides. And right now they can only run to the right, but now I don't think they can run to the right. So that's why the decision was made. And you're trying to protect the guy's ego, and you're trying to make sure that he doesn't lose all of his confidence. So you're just projecting that you're not giving up on him, which I don't think they are. I don't think they're giving up on him. I just think he's not good enough right now. And they felt like they had an opportunity to upgrade. Didn't last very long. I think that actually did help. I think he did run the ball decently well early in that game, and it went away very quickly. But that's what happened. He got benched. There's no way around it. You can dress it up with like perspective, whatever. I think that they decided, Nick Saldiveri is on kind of a redshirt year. And I think what they're seeing now is, the same reason they don't want to throw Nick Saldiveri to the Wolves, because it would not benefit the Saints to do that. They thought, what, maybe we can get him out, get him some reps and drills and technique work, as opposed to game plan work necessarily. And it didn't last very long. But like you saw, he did not play well. He reverted back to week 1, week 2 level. I think he 5 pressures, a sack allowed, 2 penalties, 1 got declined, but the one that got declined was literally, he got beat so badly that he just tripped the guy. I don't know if you noticed that. It was down in the red zone. It was one of those red zone trips where the only reason no one was talking about how badly Trevor got beat was because I'm pretty sure Caesar got beat right to Max got beat right inside of him. And it's not a great look for Trevor, but and the one thing that I said that I do believe is they're not giving up on him. They're still gonna. I think they do still want him to be their left tackle of the future. He's just not that right now.
No, and with the injuries now piling up here, obvious questions you had with a first-round pick you're hoping can do something. I know a lot of folks have mentioned, switching him to guard. That can't just come overnight, though. That's not something that, we can just put him next game, throw him at guard. He'll pick that up.
Yeah, for one thing, he's never played guard in his life. So he's not playing guard. I mean, well, the funny thing is they did that with Caesar. I think when you're a veteran player and you've been around a few years and you suddenly get asked to do something that you just don't do, it's you can figure it out, right? With a young player who's struggling to do the job that is his job, you're not suddenly being like, yeah, dude, you do something else now, right? He's also profiles as a left tackle, and if his biggest struggle right now is run blocking, which who saw that coming? And it's that's what you got to do at guard. You got to be able to pull. You got to be able to find your blocks. And if that's what he's doing poorly now, then that's not good. But I do like I said before we went to break, I do appreciate the decisiveness of that move. I think one thing that this team has struggled with is just acting with conviction, like being like, no, this is how we operate. We're doing it this way. And you're not doing the job. Let's find someone who can do it. That's that message that he said that to this point has just been a message, and I think that's a sign that's like, no, this is going beyond that now. So anyway, we can move on from Trevor Penning to the actual, the other big news that is on this injury report. Linebacker Demario Davis with a knee issue. He would have been a DMP today. He did talk to the media, so I don't think it's a huge issue.
Right.
But, Demario Davis had a knee issue. He did not participate. Tyrann Mathieu with a foot issue. He would be limited. So those are two big names that the Saints cannot afford to be without.
No, the Demario probably is, nursing some kind of knee issue, and you just scratch it. We'll just give him a Veterans Day / knee, we'll list kind of deal. I would assume with this one, like you said, he spoke today. You don't typically hear from players that are, nursing some serious injuries.
No, not if, although it is the first time we've heard from Demario in like 2 weeks.
But he spoke post game too.
You're right. He did. No, he didn't. He didn't talk post game.
Oh, I thought
Cam
he did.
talked.
Okay, I got you.
He might have talked to somebody in the locker room, but he did not do, press availability.
Right.
I don't know why my dog is going nuts. But yeah, so let's keep going down this. Jordan back.
Did you happen to notice anything with Mathieu in the game? Because I didn't.
No. I mean, I think part of this is, if you had 3 days to recover from a game,
right,
that you would have an injury that would never show up on an injury report because you wouldn't miss practice if it was on Wednesday. If these guys had to practice today, then there would have been an issue.
This is what they're working through a day after the freaking game, right?
Yeah, so I think that's part of it. And they didn't even practice today, obviously. It was a walkthrough. But yeah, Tyrann Mathieu with the foot injury, Chris Olave with the toe injury, Cam Jordan with the back injury. Those are the ones we knew about. Andres Pete with the groin injury, Jamal Williams, hamstring injury. And that's a good thing because that means that he has been designated to return to practice. That doesn't mean he's going to be active in week 7, but it means that he could be active in week 7. Now, you have to be out for 4 weeks when you go on injured reserve. He went on injured reserve ahead of week 3. So this is where his window to return to practice opens. And I think they have 21 days to activate him to the active roster. So that doesn't, it doesn't mean he's going to play this week, but it means that he is trending in the direction that if he doesn't play this week, then probably the week after.
Yeah, like you said, good to see his name, though, back, meaning he's obviously that much closer to being back in the mix here because whatever he can bring to this run game right now, it's welcome.
I agree. And it'll be interesting to see how they operate with him and Kamara and Kendre. I think that one area they have struggled, the Saints have struggled, is short yardage. They don't seem confident. And they haven't been able to block for it either. And that's a big part of it. But that is somewhere that Jamal thrives. And, when it was just him in there, he looked a little limited in the sense that I don't think he's a 3-down back, but he is a guy that can pick up tough yards. And, the Saints had a situation where they just needed to get 1 yard on 3rd and 1, and they couldn't do it. Those types of downs are very taken for granted until you can't get them. And then that's worth its weight in gold. So hopefully he can get back. The other one that's new on here is not Derek Carr because he has been on the injury report since week 2 with that shoulder issue, but now he has a chest issue. And people were clowning him for the play where he kind of looked like he kind of took a shot to the midsection and he was like doubled over. And I don't know why people thought that was so funny. Maybe it's just because it just looked kind of soft. But, I mean, as a person who has taken a shot to the midsection I wasn't expecting and suddenly got the wind knocked out of me, that's what happened. Like, you could see it. Maybe he took it. Maybe there was a little graze to the nether regions. You never know. That happens too. These guys are human beings. But yeah, I don't think the chest injury is anything that's going to limit him. I think that's just when you get hit a lot in a football game, your chest hurts. But that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, going back with Jamal Williams too, we haven't, you mentioned it a little there. We just haven't seen that 1-2 punch. Definitely, we wanted it out of Alvin Kamara and Jamal Williams together, and whatever the rookie like Kendra Miller can provide with that too is just like a little lanyard. But to me, uh, just having Kamara with Williams, obviously we haven't seen it in action yet.
No, and so let's just move on. So we talk about the Saints injury report. The Jags are in serious situation here too. If you look
Yeah.
at the quarterbacks, like the Saints really have to clean up over the next few weeks if they end up not facing Trevor Lawrence and they get to go out CJ Beathard. That's not a game you can afford to lose. They also have Tyson Campbell with a hamstring injury. He was a DMP. Wide receiver Zay Jones with a knee injury. He was a DMP. Trevor Lawrence with a knee injury. He's a DMP. He's day to day, as coach said. Offensive tackle Walker Little with a knee injury. He's a DMP. And then guard Brandon Scherf with an ankle injury. He's a DMP. So it's not the longest injury report in the world, but those are big names. And if you look at the Saints' next three opponents, you have the Jags, Trevor Lawrence. I would be surprised if he plays. They're in good shape. They're 4-2 right now. They don't need to risk sending him out there and having that knee hurt worse on Thursday Night Football. So I would be very, very surprised, even if he pushes to play, that he plays. Although we did see with Derek Carr that didn't seem to matter. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Next week, they're going to go and face the Colts. Anthony Richardson's on injured reserve. They're not going to face him. They're probably going to get Gardner Minshew. And then the Bears, Justin Fields, dislocated his thumb this week.
Right.
And so, he's going to miss some time. Who knows, how long that's going to take him to come back from. But, there's a reality where they face Tyson Badgett, another rookie that we were not expecting them to face. That's a guy I watched at the Senior Bowl. He's a guy out of Shepherd.
Yes, I had looked that up, and I'm like, where is Shepherd?
Yeah, and I don't even. Yeah, it's a school,
West Virginia.
Yeah, and that's so. The Saints need to be able to take advantage of these games if they end up facing three backup quarterbacks in a row, one of whom is a rookie, and the other guy they have on the Bears is Nathan Peterman, who is like a walking interception. So,
right.
The Saints.
So there's a good shot. Probably, like you said, most likely we're seeing CJ Beathard on Thursday.
Again, it's like, if there is any risk of that that knee getting worsened, I would be stunned if he's out there. He would have to be healthy, in my opinion. If this game was on Sunday, I think he plays. On a short week, and you're messing around with your franchise quarterback's knee,
right.
You'd be crazy. You'd be crazy to send him out there. And they have Gardner Minshew. They paid for a premium backup quarterback. It's not like, I'm sorry, no, the Colts have Gardner Minshew.
Right. No, he was there at one point.
But either way, CJ Beathard is not, he's been around for a long time. He's won games in the NFL. So, it's if they face CJ Beathard, they have to be able to take advantage. But either way, they got to score. You're not winning 0-0. Maybe the defense can take advantage like they did against the Patriots, but one way or another, you got to do something. And so, the Saints,
you got to watch out for that high-powered CJ Beathard offense.
I think he beat the Giants once. I remember he played for the 49ers. I remember he kept throwing deep to Marquise Goodwin. So he'll go deep. That's one thing about CJ Beathard. He's a kid out of Iowa. He will go deep. And the Panthers, the Jaguars, I got the Cats mixed up. They have guys who can stretch the field. So that's going to be something. But anything else you want to hit before we go to the mailbag?
The injury report hopefully gets better, obviously, heading towards closer to Sunday, because I kind of expected the worst with the O-line, but definitely don't like seeing DeMario and Tyron on there. I'm pretty sure Cam, it's kind of one of those veteran days of rest too, and slash the back, which we saw popped up last week as well. Yes, I agree. And we'll have to go. Now I have a cat in here making noise. It's like a menagerie of animals and sounds. But all right, this is Inside Black and Gold. We're going to come back. We got a lot of comments in there, so we're going to kind of have to go through them rapid fire, but we're going to be right back. This is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. We're coming at you with kind of a reaction
look ahead combination pod after the Saints lost 20-13 to the Texans in very unceremonious fashion. And now they get ready to face the Jaguars on Thursday Night Football. This is Inside Black and Gold. Stick around. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Yell. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. We're going to be diving into the Saints mailbag after this segment, and I will apologize in advance. There are so many comments in there. We will not be able to get to all of them, but we'll try to get to as many as we can. And I do appreciate everyone being in here and commenting. The feed has been very active. I appreciate everyone. We've had over 100 people watching this pretty much the whole time. So we'll dive right in. First things first, we did get one comment repeatedly, and it's along the lines of, here's St. John Butler says, the dog will not stand for the Shaheed disrespect. From 985 Live, even your dog's mad. From Pammy Whammy, the dog knows we suck. And then one more from Eugene Sutherland, the dog is not here for the Rashid slander. I guess maybe that is what's happening. I guess Bailey the dog is a very big Rashid Shaheed fan. I'm a big Rashid Shaheed fan. I want him to play better. I want him to be more active. He definitely needs to know his assignments. And so I agree. Bailey the dog is correct. I don't want to trash Shaheed. I like Shaheed. I think Rashid has been one of the few things that have worked in this offense. But you got to get your assignments right. You can't be having false starts on 3rd and medium like you did against the Patriots. You can't be having these weird disconnects where you're running a flag route and he's throwing a post, or no, you're running a post and he's throwing a flag, whatever it was. You gotta have those things right. And so I agree, the dog is right.
It's just odd too with him. It's like you wouldn't think. I don't know. He seems like he's obviously in his playbook. A guy that has that want, and we've seen obviously great ability from him. It just perplexing that I don't know what it's much more than having a brain fart kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the communication stuff. And part of it could be you had Chris Olave. He came out of Ohio State. It's a much more pro-oriented type offense. I think you come into the league a little bit more prepared. He got reps the entire training camp before his rookie season. He played the entire rookie season. Rashid was more slowly brought in. People kept complaining he didn't get enough touches last year. One of the reasons is his route tree was limited. His assignments were limited. You were incorporating him into the game plan as you went. And that's not as simple as it sounds. Like, everyone takes for granted how difficult it is to just get your assignment right. And people are like, well, the offense is dated. They're not doing enough creative stuff. Well, I think Deuce said this with you yesterday. It's like you can run 90 new plays every week. If you don't run them correctly, it doesn't matter. Like you could keep installing and installing and installing. If you can't run it the right way, if you can't execute it the right way, then that play, look good on paper. It's not going to work on Sunday. So, that's where I need Shaheed to be a little bit more precise. I don't know what it's going to take. Derek Carr said, it's just something they need to work closer together. He needs to maybe simplify some things and make sure they're reading things correctly. I asked Derek about this today, and it's like, how much of communication is getting the play calls communicated and making sure he knows what the play is versus, reading something. Like you're looking at the same defense and you need to be in the brain of your quarterback and understand this is what he's going to do. So this is what I have to do, and vice versa. And right now that's not correct. It seems like they're just not seeing things the same way. And to me, that's what needs to improve with Shaheed. And, he probably didn't do a ton of that at Weber State, right? Like I don't think that was a huge thing that he has done. He's been a return ace his whole career. So to me, that's probably part of it. But, I think the speed that he presents to this offense, and Chris Olave has great speed. It's not Rashid type speed, and that can change games. And we've seen him hit over the top multiple times. He saved Derek's bacon on an underthrown ball, a badly underthrown ball, in the second half of that game. So, there's good with the bad. And they'll get it. But is it going to be too little, too late by the time this offense feels like it's sorted out? I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. The fact that, nothing so far this season has ever made anyone think, oh, this is they're firing on all cylinders. Everything looks precise. A lot of disjointed plays.
Yeah, I tweeted, is another comment. I tweeted about this today. It's from Comfortable Views. It says, we should have saved the money and drafted a QB with these types of results. First of all, who were you drafting? You're going to go get Will Levis, the guy who drops to the third round, right? No.
Hey, the Saints did draft a QB.
They did. Well, right. They did. And he's coming back. And I think they do like Jake Haener, right? They did draft a QB. But, the thing that gives me I get a kick out of is in the Derek Carr conversation is the people that say, like, we should have just gone with a rookie and we would have been better off with a rookie. And, like, I need Saints fans to look in the mirror and understand about themselves. You could not handle a rookie. Like if the Saints were in a position that the Falcons are in, right? And they were trying to be like, yeah, Desmond Ritter's the guy. He comes off a 3 interception game where you lose at home to the Commanders. And they're like, we're sticking with him. You're telling me that this fan base would be having any less of a meltdown with the team sticking with Desmond Ridder over Taylor Heineke, which that's what the Falcons are doing after a 3 interception game, after laying a dud in London. You're telling me that this fan base would be like, let's do it. The needle's pointing up. We got this. No, that would be no better. So, like, it's not about suffering through a rookie. It's like the Panthers, they did everything that people seem to think the Saints should do. They hired a new head coach, fired Matt Rule last season, traded up, got the number 1 overall pick. They're 0-6 right now.
How's that working for you? Right.
So I just get a kick out of it. Like,
and you know what? You mentioned that what Saints fans want to happen, and guess what? They're also changing play calling.
Yes. And it's like, here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. Just be honest with yourself. It's not easy dealing with a rookie quarterback. Heck, it's not easy dealing with a veteran quarterback. Look at what the Giants are dealing with. They're 1-5. They just invested in their quarterback, and somehow their team just fell off a cliff. The Bills, 4-2, barely by the skin of their teeth. They paid all the money to the quarterback. Right? The Cardinals invested in their quarterback. They drafted a number 1 overall quarterback. They paid him. Well, where's that gotten them? They fired a head coach. They're starting Josh Dobbs right now. It's not because Kyler can't play. It's because he's hurt. But, it's not as simple as it sounds of saying, like, yeah, let's go get a quarterback. Look at Kenny Pickett. Like, do you think the Saints would be better off with Kenny Pickett right now? No. So, I mean, just it's the reality you're in, and if the Saints had a rookie quarterback right now, they would not be 3-3. They would be worse.
This team was not looking to do that. We know from the season before they were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. So they were clearly going after a veteran presence for what they knew they had in place with this offense, who they still considered a playoff contender.
Here's a good comment. And yeah, we're going to just go through these rapid fire here. This comment from Tara T Mama Smacka Smith. Great name. Says, I was getting a new AC unit put in today. Guy just left. One Raider fan. The other was a Broncos fan. The Broncos fan said, y'all can have Sean back. Yeah. There's a joke to be made with the AC and the fan. I don't know if we got to it. But yeah, I mean, talk about a team that's having some second thoughts.
What
Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, the combination that everyone thought was going to blow up. Nope.
Keep losing. What draft pick is it that the Saints get from them?
Their second round pick.
Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, they may very well tank for Caleb. I mean, they're in a scenario like it's going to be tough to do because Russ is not going to be incentivized to be that bad late in the season. But hey, maybe they run some of those Johnny Manziel naked bootlegs to like intentionally get him hurt to get him out of the game. So I'm pretty sure that's what the Browns were doing to Johnny Manziel by the time it was over. They were just hanging him out to dry. And like if he gets hit enough, he'll get hurt.
Oh, Sean will just call that guy that punctured what's his name's lung. The doctor on the Chargers.
Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah, he played for the Giants last night. He played pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was Tyrod Taylor. That was the Chargers. The Chargers team doctor, because Tyrod Taylor was starting for the Chargers over Justin Herbert, and they punctured his lung with an injection. Man. Anyway.
Right. Don't complain about Saints trainers, please.
Seriously. Here's another one. Says we should have just rebuilt this year. I don't know why. That's so hard to do. It would have been nicer because we could have cleaned house with the front office and coaches. Why? Because this is a team that's invested in being competitive for its fans. And like I get why that's kind of annoying in the sense that's like you feel like there are things they could have done to make the ceiling a little higher. I think this is just a team that values being competitive. And so if they have the option of being competitive and winning and fighting for a playoff spot versus tanking and clearing the salary cap and putting a team on the field that is not good enough to win, then they're going to go the route of being competitive and call it what you want. I appreciate that, right? Like I don't like seeing teams go in the tank because a lot of times they never get out of it.
There's too many weapons on this offense for people to be talking about tanking. I don't know. Unless you're talking about clearing a lot of house, then if you're getting rid of some of these names, that's what's frustrating to me so much with this year too, is the fact that you can rattle off the laundry list of guys that are playmakers, and it's still not getting done because of execution.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I've said this and I'll keep saying it. I appreciate a team that wants to win, right? Because I mean, once you train yourself to lose, you're just going to lose. And you can say Dennis Allen, that's another thing. It's like Dennis Allen, everyone says like, oh, he's 18-41. Why don't they fire him? It's like, because they're not looking like if they were going to hold his Raiders head coaching record against him, they would have done that. Like they're not looking at the Raiders. They're looking at he is 10-13 as a Saints head coach. And that's not good either. But like, that's the number. That is the number. 10-13 right now. It's not 18-41. It's 10-13. That's what this Saints team is going to look at. And that's not good enough either. But it's so funny. It's like, 18-41. That number means nothing.
Well, I just want to see more W's coming in the win column and touchdowns being scored because the brand of football we're seeing ain't working when it hasn't been since last season. And it still hasn't gotten on any kind of clear path right now. That's the problem I see too. I don't see even a vision right now of using these weapons correctly.
Can you hear that cat?
No.
Okay, well, then I won't do anything about it. She's just yelling. This is crazy. I don't know what's happening with these animals.
They're fed up with the Saints. They're taking over the pod and want to voice their opinion.
Apparently. Pammy whammy. Crazy thing is we may win Thursday. That's how inconsistently inconsistent we are. I think
totally agree.
I agree. I think they probably do win Thursday, especially if they go against the backup quarterback. But yeah.
Although
and the Jags.
that might make it worse. We're facing CJ Beathard, and the certain doom impending if you lose to him, what would happen?
That is true. That is true. It would that would be a twist of the knife. Big Dog Q. I haven't felt this low as a Saints fan or as a fan since Mike Ditka and Jim Haslett days. This coaching staff is probably worse because of the lack of accountability. I understand. I'm not gonna fault that because right now we have not seen anything that puts them outside of that range, right? So, I can't disagree with that take. Like that's the type of success you've seen so far.
No, I mean it's hard coming off the glory days of Sean Payton and Drew Brees. Have you seen the meme where it's like the coach that Denver thought they were getting, and it's Sean Payton holding the Super Bowl trophy, and then the coach that Denver got, and it's Kevin James dressed as Sean Payton in that Netflix movie.
Fair. I can get on board with that. There's Eugene Sutherland. It's damn tough being a Saints fan in the middle of Philadelphia these days. Yeah, I can imagine.
Hey, man, and then Philadelphia falling from the ranks of the undefeated. Such a weird week. We saw San Fran, Philly lose, a ton of injuries to a lot of big names too.
Yeah, no, and like there's weird things happen, right? The NFL is a league where any team can beat any other team. And if you don't think that's possible, look at what happened with the Jets.
What?
The Jets beat the Eagles 20-14. The Browns beat the 49ers 19-17. The Lions beat up on the Bucks. The Raiders beat the Patriots. That's the least surprising result. But it is also funny because Josh McDaniels got some revenge on Bill Belichick there. The Dolphins beat up on the Panthers. That's not a surprise. It's just a weird league, man. It's a weird league. And, I think that's why you look at it and you say, yeah, the Saints can improve. They need to improve. And I think they can. So I don't know.
It was good to see Atlanta look like maybe they were getting a little momentum for them going. They were undefeated at home this season. And then Washington comes in there and stomps them, goes out with a victory. That was awesome. I was so surprised, though. When is that team going to end up, making the move at quarterback? I thought we'd be seeing Tyler Heineke a lot sooner over there.
He threw three. Desmond threw 3 interceptions in that game.
No, he's good.
It's not a good look. It's not a good look. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, that's a quarterback the Saints could have, right? Like when you're talking about the Saints should turn to a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback, that's the type of quarterback you're talking about. You're not getting Pat Mahomes. You're not getting a top 10 pick. You're getting the guy who drops out of the first round, right?
Well, yeah. From last year, who would you have hit on? You're not getting who were you going after last year of getting this young quarterback? That's if you're a Saints fan, I know it's not.
You're not trading up. You're probably ended up with Will Levis.
Yeah,
who could be good. I mean, we haven't seen him.
Right.
The Titans are probably going to have to get him in there before long because I think Ryan Tannehill got hurt. And he's been terrible. I know that because I had to start him in fantasy in our 2 QB league. I had Aaron Rodgers and Deshaun Watson.
Ugh.
That's not going well. I'm stuck with Zach Wilson and Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill got like 1 point.
And I think, the reports were that I think Tannehill left the game on crutches.
Yeah, not a good look. We have a comment from Carl Marky Marks. Not a fan of DA. He says DA isn't the leader. Pete is a fraud, and the O-line is held together by prayer and duct tape. That's fair. That's more than fair. That's exactly what's happening right now. No discipline. Bad. Huh?
I was like, is that like a sponsored? You have to pay $20 to answer that?
No, they tipped us $20.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, let me let the cat outside before.
Now I hear the kitty whining about them Carolina kitty cats being winless. That's one, folks, I always laughed at. It was just Frank Reich coming in to change this, offensive momentum in Carolina. And he didn't do it with the Colts. How many quarterbacks did he go through there? It's just amusing to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But anyway, okay, so Carl Marky Marks, DA isn't a leader, Pete is a fraud, and the O-line is held together by prayer and duct tape. And a lot of duct tape at this point. No discipline, bad play calling, poor execution. These are problems that only get solved with a new coaching staff. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I mean, either way, you're not like that. The thing is, people are saying fire DA, fire Pete Carmichael. I think there's a chance that happens, but it's not happening mid-season. Like that's something that like you can ask a lot of questions about this team. One thing we know about this team is they are loyal to a fault. They're not firing these guys mid-season.
Yeah, I might look at maybe they consider something going on with the offensive line coaching staff kind of thing and maybe getting new players there, but that's not happening until next year, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I could see some position coaches getting moved around. I could see some changes.
Yeah.
And maybe you do change the play calling duties. I think that is the first one thing that you can trigger and you really should consider. But this idea that they're going to fire someone in season, they're not going to do it because you're not going to get better doing that. Like you're not, that's not something that's going to help this team this year. If you think that you can improve things long term by changing the coaching staff and moving on and resetting the deck this offseason, sure, but you're not getting anywhere. You're not improving by throwing an interim head coach in the mix.
I think you'd have to lose 4 to the next 5 going into the bye if they would seriously make a move. You're talking about like play calling even. I don't see that happening during the season really either.
I don't know.
It'd have to be extreme.
Well, like I said, so you have that 10-day break coming up. And if you are going to rejigger things in that way, I could see it happening if you go out and lose to the Jags with CJ Beathard in like a low scoring game and like a 9-6 game because you just cannot get anything done offensively. I could say, like, to me, that should be enough. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. I think this offense is going to bounce back. I think that's kind of what we're going to see with this team. They're going to do that yo-yo, right?
Who's blocking though?
Huh?
Who's blocking?
That's a good question. I think I did get a text earlier. I think they want me to come try out. No, please, no, that wouldn't happen.
Okay, so you'll run over, right?
Yeah, I would run and hide. I would throw the Olay block. But yeah, I mean, I think that's what you're going to see with this team, and it is probably a sign of coaching that isn't up to snuff. Is you're going to see a game where they just don't show up, and then you're gonna, they're gonna get read the riot act, and they're gonna lock in, and they're gonna have a really good week of practice, and they're gonna be prepared, and they're gonna go out and they're gonna play well, and then they're gonna get excited about it and not play well the next week, and that's got to change. And if it doesn't, yeah, I do think you fired the coach. But thanks, Carl, for the comment. It is, it's fair. It's all fair.
I'm just looking. I see the last comment coming in from Marvelous. Can you highlight that one?
Marvelous, like recent?
Yeah, just the last one I see that came in.
Why not replace the quarterback?
I've got what is it? 100 million reasons why.
Yeah, I mean, who are you? Yeah, I guess you could say put a Jameis in there. They're not doing that. Whether they should or not, they're not doing that.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not going to happen. It's like you're going down with the ship here. You made this bed, you're going to sleep in it. Yeah. The Keeping It Real Who Dat Sports podcast. They're always in here having a good time. You can go check them out. It says, why many of you think a new coaching staff is going to come in here and work with some magic fairy dust and the Saints go from the middle of the pack to a contender? You are fooling yourself. Like I that's kind of where I'm at too. Like I'm also not thrilled with how things have gone or how things have been going. But who's like, that's the point. It's like, so you fire DA. Who takes over? Does this team get better? No. I mean, it just gets like it's not a situation, like it's not that simple, right?
The popular one is definitely John Gruden gets mentioned.
They're not hiring John Gruden. This team finally got out of the NFL's doghouse. They're not gonna dive back into it.
Right, Sean's in Denver. Leave us alone, and then they're gonna
finally getting some penalty calls. That pass interference they threw late for Mike Thomas. You're not getting that with Sean here. Get out of here. It was like the ref was like, oh, this is the Saints. Oh wait, yeah, we don't do that anymore. We're gonna throw it out there.
No, I agree with you too. It's like this is we're going down with the ship kind of deal. There's nothing coming change wise. I don't know what folks are. It's not like you mentioned Ronald Curry as a possibility. Obviously, but I don't think the team, or maybe Curry's even ready to take over that. I don't know.
But so Dre Day says it's extreme now. Are we going to wait until week 15? It's not extreme. Like have some perspective here, right? Like there are examples of extreme ineptitude going on. You saw it with the Panthers last year, but you're seeing it with teams that have completely gone in the tank, and there's no way out of it, right? Like you don't fire a coach mid-season if there is a route to the playoffs still existing. You don't. And right now, you're 3-3. The goal has to be the people in the building make things better. And how you do that, there are a lot of variables. You can make changes, but this idea that anyone's going to clean house at 3-3 is silly. It's nonsense. It's comical. It's just not going to happen. But I do think, again, it's like people take that as like, oh yeah, you're just in for DA and in for this and in for that. No, I want to see changes, but changes that are actually meaningful and not just this. Like one of the things that annoys me is it's like
change to change, just
yeah, change will always be better, and it's like there is also a scenario where it's worse. Look at the Giants. Look how many coaches they've gone through in the last 5 years since they replaced Tom Coughlin. Like, I mean, Ben McAdoo was better off driving a bus, but even he got him to the playoffs and then completely fell off. Brian Dable, that seemed to go well. Now it's not anymore. Pat Shurmur, Joe Judge.
I always thought Lovie Smith got done wrong in Chicago.
Yeah, and there's certain teams do it a different way, right? Like the Bengals kept what's his name, Marvin Lewis on forever, and the Cowboys kept Jason Garrett on for a long time. The Steelers kept Mike Tomlin on forever. So I mean, you can do it multiple different ways, but the Saints team they do it their way, and whether you can disagree with it, but that's just how they're going to do it. So yeah, but I do think like one thing that annoys me is. And people kind of say like, well, you're downplaying this. You're not reacting as strongly as you should. And to me, it's like, if you always have the panic meter at a 12 out of 10, what happens when it should be at a 12 out of 10? Like, it's like when you're calling a game, when you hear someone announcing a game and they go nuts for a touchdown at the end of the first quarter. It's like, well, what happens for the game winning score? What happens when there's actually a crazy play? How can you go any higher? Dwayne Wade ruined an entire dunk competition one year by giving out a 10 to just a simple dunk, and then it was like, well, where do we go from here? Now everyone's getting 10s for everything. And when your panic meter is always at a 10, there's nothing that can be done about it. I typically hover at a safe 4 to 6. And then when things get real bad, I bump it up to like a 7.5. That's about where I am right now. But there is room. You got to leave room, right? Because to me, in my position and the way I kind of approach the media space from my own perspective, for me to go out there and say this coach should be fired, if I'm going to do that, it better mean something. I'm not saying that on a whim. I better mean that. And I better be able to stand behind it. And if I do that at every instance where things go poorly, then it means nothing, right? So to me, that's kind of where I approach it. Like, I'm not going to come at you at a 12 every day. There is a 12. There is a version of me that's a 12. But you're only going to see it if it's merited. And if you do see it, you're gonna know it anyway.
Clear the area.
yeah. Clear the decks. It's going off. But yeah, like that's anyway. Like because I see people.
It's easy to just think you just snap your finger to make a change, kind of thing. It's done.
Well, I see people in the media space that are just constantly, just the end is nigh, and there's no way back from this, and. There is an element of that in like, yeah, there are problems and you do need to fix them, but you got to identify what they are. It's not just a sweeping declaration. This is broken and it's unfixable. Like what are the fixes? Where do you make them? And if you can figure that out, then you can improve. They say like, race to get better thing.
whoever had that message to us before, we definitely need more duct tape for this week for the O-line.
Yeah, well, we have a roll of duct tape here. We have plenty. We can get as much as we need. Where do we put it? Right? Let's find it. Let's find those spots. And that's what coaching staffs have to be able to do. If they fail in doing that, that's what gets you fired. If the locker room crumbles, if you lose the locker room, which people keep saying DA lost the locker room for this, for that, for this, for that. Guys, I go in the locker room. They're fine. Like they don't like losing any more than you like watching them losing. I would argue that they dislike it a lot more. This is their livelihood. But the idea that like there's grumbling going on, or they're like sitting in the corner, like planning the demise of the coach and the quarterback. That's in your mind. Now that can happen. Like you see it around the league, and that's when coaches get fired, is when that actually does start to happen. And I think there's always kind of the cracks that start to show of like things are going so poorly that these guys are not able to, that the leaders are not able to lead, that the people who exist in that locker room to kind of mold everything into the shape that it's supposed to be and put that product out on the field on Sunday. If they stop being able to do that, that's when the locker room gets lost. And simply playing badly is not losing the locker room.
I'm laughing because I see St. John Butler typing into us. Pretty sure Jake Haener was taking snaps at left tackle. If that's the case, that's like you or I getting thrown in there.
I'm bigger than Jake Haener. What are you talking about?
Right.
Blake Groupie going in there. Have you ever seen Not Another Teen Movie?
Yes.
There's that scene where he throws to the kid and he gets like torn in half in the end zone.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm worried that Blake's going to try to make a tackle on a kickoff and something like that's going to happen to him. Jake's the same way. Like Jake's tiny dude. Yeah. Anyway, I feel like I've ranted. I mean, there's so many comments in here. I couldn't possibly get to them all. I appreciate everyone.
And you know what? I get it with everybody. It was painful to watch this game. And like I said before, Jeff, it was just so odd. So many different little elements were just off, and through obviously everything off kilter. And like I said, I think it just started with that turnover that we turned over. And that was just, it went to shit from there.
There's always a point in an NFL game that's going to go badly where it's like, this is not their day.
That was it.
That was it. It happened early. And it's like, it all kind of like that. That's like I said, they should have been up 10-0 in that game. They should have gotten that ball. They should have made that field goal. They should have gotten that ball. And then all of a sudden, CJ Stroud is reeling a little bit. The Saints get the ball in plus territory. Worst case, there should be up 6. Anyway, it's that was that moment. That was the it's not your day moment. And then it only got like when you miss a 29-yard field goal, when you intercept a ball and then fumble it before you can even run an offensive play and miss a 29-yard field goal in the same game, man, that's just not your day. It's actually happened twice this year where the Saints have gotten a critical turnover, and the very next thing they did was give it back.
Gross, right? Disgusting.
Like I can't remember the last time that happened. Period. Like the Meach around is a good example of one. And like those are pretty memorable moments when they happen. It's happened twice this year. Anyway, it's 992 RAS with a good comment. Says Carolina got the wrong QB because of their owner. It did sound like that. Frank Reich came out and talked about like kind of the ownership being involved. And he was like, oh, everyone does it differently. But it's like you're not saying it, but you're saying it.
Yeah, pretty much. I think there was a clip too of the QB coach, Josh McCown, telling CJ Stroud something like, yeah, hey, we'll get together on the weekends for some golf, for something. And it was like insinuating that, hey, we're taking you and I'll be talking to you soon.
I remember that when it happened. I think they were talking about the visit, like he was going to take a visit.
Okay.
But yeah. Anyway, that's all I got. You got anything else you want to hit before we go?
No, just hoping, we get some health back, obviously, and we see some good football this week because that was another thing about last game. It was just, it wasn't fun football to watch.
Agreed. But all right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Inside Black and Gold. We'll be back at you on Wednesday. That's when we're going to do our preview episode. We don't have time for a midweek episode this week because we're just going to be getting right into the Jaguars Saints matchup. We probably will know a lot more about Trevor Lawrence's status. So that'll be something we'll be able to get into. Hopefully we can get a Jaguars guest to kind of dive in to what they've been doing. Head coach Doug Peterson seems to be running a pretty tight ship over there. So we'll have to see. But thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully this was cathartic for some of you. It was a rough Sunday. Hopefully there are better weeks ahead. I'm Jeff Nowak. He's Steve Geller. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. You can follow him at Steve Geller WWL. You can follow the show at Saints_pod. Check out the latest news, notes, and analysis at WWL.com. And Steve, how you feeling? You good?
I'm definitely down this Monday, man. People talk about how the football team can affect you for the week, and yeah, definitely starting off on a down note, just how everything in the game went, and then just even with the injury report coming out, just the fears of the O-line realized. So I'm just going to go in a dark, deep hole and cry a little till the next pod.
Yeah, I think I said before we came on, like I don't like who I am when I'm watching the Saints play football.
I get it, totally.
Anyway, all right, y'all. Thanks for listening. Who dat? Go Saints. Still.
Thursday night, baby.
Be easy, y'all. Peace.